All right, let's do this. Today is day 472, 473. Man, we've been doing this for a while, huh? Let's stay consistent, everybody. So today, what we're doing is we're adding to our list of comparable sales properties, specifically sold properties, but now we're tracking properties that are coming onto the market. Because if you have been following what we've been doing for the past year, we've been tracking properties that have been sold on the market in Alabama, specifically in Birmingham, by zip code, by bed bath count, all these typical statistics or data points that you would see, right? Lot size, sold dates, the subdivision or the neighborhoods, and some general comments about the conditions of the home. When tracking the properties that have been sold in the last 12 months, then we started tracking properties that have been sold in the last 3 months. And now, most recently, after we've exhausted that list, we've been tracking properties that are coming onto the market and seeing what they're being listed for. Now, the reason we're doing this is because, well, guess what? We are seeing the 10-year yield doing a seesaw, 10-year treasury yield. Okay, let's click that up. Now, if you're aware of how the treasury, the 30-year mortgage interest rates work, it's really driven by a couple of factors. Two of them being, one is the interest rate of the 10-year treasury yield, which right now is the 4.788. And also, it's been trending at nearly 12-month highs because it's gone from maybe 3.34 to almost 5% at the 12-month high. But it's also driven by the spread between the 10-year yield and the 30-year mortgage interest rates. Now, historically, that spread has been about 1.5% to 2%, but that spread went as high as 3%. And when that happened, right, that's where we saw all the mortgage rates going to nearly 8%. So why we care about the 10-year yield is because we have to track what's happening in the market, because as interest rates go up, that naturally drives down the affordability of your home. So if you are pursuing the BRRRR strategy, right, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat, the whole point of that strategy, if you were to use an example, is let's say you buy a home for $20,000 and you spend 50 grand on that property to renovate it to get it to be worth $100,000. Well, okay. Now all of a sudden you're all in on that property for $70,000. Amazing. But now you made the home worth 100 grand. So you created $30,000 of equity. And now what that allows you to do is you can go and get a debt service coverage ratio loan, a DSCR loan, for 70% of that home's value. Now, what does that allow you to do? That allows you to take back out the 70 grand that you originally invested, leave $30,000 equity in the deal, and you can take out that 70 grand in the form of loan proceeds and use and rinse and repeat using the same capital stack to put it towards your next deal. That's the power of the BRRRR strategy. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is you save up money from your full-time job and you save up money for a 20% down payment, 25%, and you hope that the property you buy cash flows or appreciates, and then you do it all over again, meaning you save up money from your full-time job all over again. So that saving up period takes a really, really long time. So you're able to follow the BRRRR strategy, you take back out the initial invested capital and you get a rinse and repeat over and over, which is why a lot of people like it, because it's a much more scalable strategy. However, what is that strategy dependent on? It's heavily, heavily dependent on you getting the ARV correctly. Because if you don't get it correct, you can end up leaving capital in the deal, or just simply not executing a perfect BRRRR means that it slows down your pace of reinvestment tremendously. So that's why it's so important. And that's why we're tracking properties that are coming onto the market every single day. So this is now us looking at 4-bedroom homes in this market, single family homes only, and properties that have been on the market for less than 3 days. So that's how I found this property in Midfield, 168 grand. And this is 225 Pinewood Avenue, Midfield, Alabama, 35228. Now, in general, this home isn't super modern, but That is an above average kitchen, a little old, but above average kitchen. Some carpeting in this room right here that I would recommend to get replaced. So maybe carpeting in 2 bedrooms, not super modern bathrooms, but it's renovated, right? Okay, so it's not bad, not bad at all. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write down condition zone. Above average kitchen, not modern. Above average kitchen and bathrooms. Modern, no painting needed based on photos. Carpet can be ripped out in 2 bedrooms. Okay, great. So now you can make a choice on like, hey, now I get some general idea on how the condition of the home looks. All right. Now, what neighborhood is this property in? And this matters to me because I care a lot about this is in Midfield. So let me write that one down. Midfield. I care a lot about getting this right subdivision because if you don't get all these details down, then you run the risk or increase the risk of getting a comp that's not necessarily the right comp for you. Because let's start with what's the perfect comp, right? The perfect comp is if I buy another property with the same lot size, same property, same finishes, same year build, same bed bath count right next to it. That would be the perfect comp. But it never happens that way, right? So if you just cross this Route 11, I mean, you're in a completely different neighborhood, right? Technically, because that's a whole complete different neighborhood because you're going across the highway. And the prices of those homes might be dramatically different as you cross parks, creeks, natural barriers, or man-made barriers like highways and interstates. You are very much in different neighborhoods, and that increases the risk of your ARV estimate being incorrect because when an appraiser gives you a appraised value that you don't necessarily agree with, particularly if it's lower than you expected, how are you going to challenge that appraisal? What comparative properties or sold comps are you going to put in to challenge that appraisal, to appeal it? And the only way you understand what to do is by just adding to your list one property a day and learning how this all works. Okay. So let me write down some details there. So now that I got some general conditions at home, this property was built in 1946. Let me write that one down. This is listed for $168,000. 0.38 acres for the lot size. This was listed today. Obviously now it's 113 technically. 25. So on $1 per square foot perspective, this property is being sold for $99 a square foot. And that number is what I care most about. Okay. Now that I got these details in here, now I know next time I get a 3-bedroom property and it's roughly around the same square footage, plus or minus 10, 15%, I can try to estimate what that ARV of that property looks like based on if I'm able to just give the pictures of this home and it in fact sold for $100 per square foot, then I don't want to be all in on my BRRRR property for my acquisitions and rehab to be more than $70 a square foot because that if it goes higher than that, it lowers my chances of me getting it out, right? Especially if I'm trying to achieve $100 per square foot valuation. All right. So let's analyze this deal as is, right? Let's assume we're buying this property on the market for $168,000. Now, in terms of rent on this property, if I go to affordablehousing.com and I go to the owner section and I go to the market rent estimator, plug in the address, plug in bedroom count, I can see that the average rent is $1,360. So that's roughly in line with the $1,400 that I typically see. And that's the average for 3 miles for 25 units that are 4-bedroom plus. Okay. Now, for my taxes, my estimates here, I'm going to get it right from my payment calculator. That's 87. Obviously, double check with your county or assessor records before you close so you can get the right and final figures. And this $130 insurance estimate, I'm assuming this 130 is for a primary residence property. So if you're using it as an investment property, chances are an insurance company will view an investment property as a higher risk. So that's why I'm multiplying by 1.2 right here. Okay. Now, then I got 10% set aside for my maintenance. I got 10% for my property management expenses, and I got 5% for my vacancy expenses. So this is so important. Please, please, please always make sure you're putting aside money every single month for maintenance, for future capital expenditures. Because these are expenses that you have to spend. These are all important steps because if you don't put aside maintenance, even though you know that roof is going to get replaced in 10, 15 years, that HVAC is going to get replaced in 10, 15 years. The water heater is going to get replaced in 10, 15 years. I mean, all these factors matter. So if you don't set aside as money, then you will be overestimating your profitability because you underestimated your expenses. Don't be that person. And please don't believe people that tells you there's no maintenance. That's just a whole load of garbage. All right. So if I do 25% down on this property, my down payment is going to be equals to 168 grand in my asking price, multiplied by 25% in F19. So it's 42 grand. I got 2.5% for closing costs here. And then I got my renovations reserve at 6,000. So let's see if I need to renovate the property. So I will set aside, let's see, 2 bathrooms. I'll replace them with high pressure flush toilets. Great. I don't think I need to paint anything, but I do think I need to replace the flooring on about 600 square feet for those 2 rooms. Rip the carpeting. I got $5 for some landscaping. I got $1,500 for the roof in case there's any patchwork needed. And it gives me a total rehab about 9 grand. All right. That's not that much. And it's good to kind of have that as a backup step. All right. So now I'm going to 7.5%. And with this, I am going to be working on, let's see what I got. Let's see what my cash flow is. So if I rent out for as a 4-bedroom for $1,350, I'll be negative 104 cash flow a month. And that's a negative 2.3% return, assuming I bought this property for 168 grand, and that's a rehab of 9,200. Down payment of 25% with a 7.5% interest rate. Okay, great. Great. Now, let's say my target return is 10%. Now, again, this is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. Just showing you the work that I do every single day to see whether or not this works. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. If I lower my asking price to 100 grand, now I'm at 8.3%. If I'm at 95 grand, 92, great. Now I'm at 10%. So 93,000 is my minimum. So that's 10%. So if I buy this part for 93 grand, assuming everything else stays constant with the rehab number at 9,200 and a 7.5% interest rate, I can cash flow 10%. That's the cash return, and cash flow 289 a month, assuming I rent it out for 1,350. This is the beauty of analyzing deals, right? You understand that for every property, there's a price or a set of terms that would make it a deal. Again, 10% is not the magical number. Right? Everyone has different approaches to this. Some people might just want to buy $1 million home in Southern California. And if it appreciates 5% every single year, they would be so happy because it's $50,000, right? Who cares about $300 of cash flow a month? Right? That's why everybody has different strategies. And you have to understand, hey, if you're in a non-appreciating market and you're going after cash flow, how much return on your capital do you want to justify the risk and the time and the energy that you're putting in, right? There's execution risk, right? Execution risk is whether or not that contractor is going to show up and do what he or she said they're going to do. What about if you fail an inspection and your holding costs go up? What about if the tenant trashes your home, right? These are all part of the risk equation. And if you don't factor this to justify the risk you're taking on, then you wouldn't be really making a wise decision. So please take all these factors into account. I'll do one more scenario. So let's say your interest rates drop from 7.5% to 6%. And now you're at 12.37%. Great. So that tells me if my baseline, my bottom number is 10%, then I can afford to pay a little bit more for this property. Right? It jumped to 12%, but now I can increase my asking price from $93,000 to $103,000. That still allows me to meet my target return of 10%. So that's how I can take emotions out of the analysis and realize that, hey, at 7.5%, that allows me to do it. Okay. All right. Last but not least, if If my rehab doubled, I go to B6 and I multiply by 2. And my rehab doubled to 18 grand, right? I went to the property, I got people to rip up the floor and realize it's not leveled. So I got to do some extra flooring work on the subfloor. Or I find out that my roof is leaking. I need to replace the whole roof instead of just patching work. Now my cash on cash return is down to 8%, right? Assuming I'm still at 6% interest rate. So now I might have to go back down to 93 grand just to round up to my original target of 10%. So now I'm at 9.8%, but because my rehab doubled to $18,000, I have to go back down to 93 grand. Okay. And that's how you go about analyzing this deal without, again, involving emotions. So even though your rehab double when you figure it out, as long as you had an inspection contingency on it, then now you know, right? Okay, so all these factors are going to be matter. Huge, huge factors. My hope is this: you copy my homework, build out your own comp list for your market, whatever that may be, by zip code, by neighborhoods. Analyze the same deal I analyzed today using the same property, right? This is property listed 14 hours ago, so I didn't make this up. And if you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, go to the Get Deal Analysis tool, plug in your name, your email, phone number. That's the fastest for you to get a copy of the spreadsheet. And I hope you can start your own YouTube channel. Because at some point, someone's going to ask you, hey, why do you think that this is a deal? Then you can say, I know this is a deal because I've been looking at deals every single day for the past 473 days. Might that make you feel a little bit more confident that you know what you're doing? I certainly hope so. And thank you all so much for staying consistent with me. Thank you so much for supporting the lives. Thank you so much for your supportive comments. Got it. Comment from Tanya saying, great friend of mine. It's comments like these that really keep me going, and I sincerely appreciate you all. Without people like you, I would have never had the home I grew up in. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all so much. I hope this is helpful. And sometimes learning to take the first step is hard. So I'm hoping that this is the first step. And you just get to copy my homework. All right. Have an amazing day, everybody. Have an amazing Tuesday. Spend some quality time with your family and friends today because that's what life is all about. All right. Have a good one. I'll see you all tomorrow for day